The Missing Princess project claims to have solved the mystery of the princess in the tower. It is led by Philippa Langley. The 61-year-old was responsible for the 2012 project that found the remains of King Richard III. I thought it was therefore appropriate to make a short video outside the regular uploads to answer the question of whether Langley and her team actually succeeded in solving the mystery. As a spoiler, by no means are all doubts removed. Langley claims that Richard and Edward escaped from the tower in 1483 and fled to mainland Europe. She believes Perkin Warbeck to be Richard of York. Edward V is said to have been Lambert Simnel. Neither name is new to historical research. I'm leaving out their backstory because there are excellent videos on YouTube and a lot of excellent reading material on the subject. Generally speaking, historians consider both men to be pretenders. Langley relies on 3 documents to prove that Warbeck and Richard are one and the same. Firstly, a decade after his disappearance, the prince is said to have written a witness account of how he was smuggled out of the tower by Henry and Thomas Percy and taken to Portugal. The family later made headlines for not supporting Richard's army with their own troops at the Battle of Bosworth. The author of the document mentions details such as his head being shaved and him being dressed in poor clothing. Langley believes it to be genuine on the basis of these details. It is also confirmed that the document dates from around this time. In fact, however, the details are more of a problem than proof of authenticity. People do not remember well what happened 10 years ago. This also applies to traumatic and formative experiences. Countless stories from concentration camps have confirmed this. This does not mean that Richard cannot be the exception from the rule, but it is not conclusive proof either. The second document dates from 1483 and is also said to have been from Richard, who promises Duke Albert of Saxony 30,000 florins within 3 months after he has conquered the English throne. It bears the royal seal and the signature Richard, Duke of York. The question inevitably arises, where did the seal come from? Moreover, Edward is said to have been alive, so the throne would not have been gone to Richard. The third document states that Emperor Maximilian is said to have recognized Richard on the basis of 3 distinguished birthmarks. If these were so well known that even the Roman German emperor knew about them, he was not the only one. It can therefore not be ruled out that they were forged. Well, they did not exist at all in the first place, as the emperor had a vested interest in Richard still being alive in order to weaken England. This brings us to Edward V. He is concerned with 2 documents. These are receipts from 1487 for arms for an invasion of England by Yorkists, supported by Margaret of Burgundy, who was the aunt of the missing princess. The invasion was led by her nephew, who had been expelled from his dominion. Margaret tells here. This is not new. It is known that she presented Lambert as Edward. In this respect, the project was not able to provide any new insights, but only corroborate what has already been known. What's more, this is not the first time that Langley had claimed to have found Edward. John Evans was only recently the name that the project identified as the missing king. How does that fit together? I am against immediately branding historical research findings as false. However, you shouldn't go to the other extreme either. Not every source found is immediately the long-awaited breakthrough. This is especially true if logical reasoning leads to a number of questions that still needs to be answered. I understand that this evidence was produced for a TV documentary about the princess in the tower, and that spectacular hooks were therefore needed, but with this legendary mystery in particular, care should always beat speed. And just for the record, all the comments so far are the kindest I can make on the subject. In the context of proper source criticism, as a historian, it should also be noted that it was and is not uncommon for people to pretend to be the long-lost children of kings and queens and to produce documents to enrich themselves or gain other advantages. Langley's self-declared mission is to correct the historical image of Richard III, proving that he did not kill his nephews, which I personally assume he did, is key to this. It is all the more important for her to do this in a flawless way. She hasn't managed that yet.